Off. Hi, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the February monthly members call. I'm very pleased to introduce our guest speaker this evening, Jessica Thomas. Jessica is a director of patient education at the Neuroendocrine Tumor Research Foundation, probably known to most of you as NETRF or NETRF. I came across Jessica in January this year. Actually, I was reading one of the NETRF newsletters, and in there was a section about supporting other NET groups around the world. And so I reached out to Jessica, and she very kindly agreed to come and chat to us this evening. So, Jessica, thanks very much for making the time. I know you're joining us from North Carolina, so thanks. Thanks for dialing in. And I also know we were just chatting before a few of you joined. I know you've got a little bit of a throat issue after some travel. Hopefully this is not going to be too onerous for you. But we're really looking forward to the discussion this evening. I guess what we discussed was having a little bit of an introduction to NETRF, and then talking about the concepts of living well, living with resilience, which is something that I know is very close to your heart. And maybe if there's anything further you'd like to include in kind of a little bit of a self-introduction, that would be fantastic.
Absolutely. So again, can everyone understand me okay? Okay, that's my biggest fear in this. So I'm going to be drinking a lot of beverages as we talk, and I apologize that I sound a little bit like Cookie Monster or Kermit the Frog right now, but I usually have a nice, sweet voice. So I've been with NETRF now for about, since the summer. But I am not new to working with people with chronic disease or progressive disease or terminal disease even. I have over probably around 17 years experience of working with people. And so I wanted to share a little bit about, of course, NETRF, and then I'm going to talk a little bit about resilience and living well with disease. Now, sometimes I share this and sometimes I don't, but today I'll share. It has nothing to do with my voice, but I live with a chronic disease. And so a lot of the information that I will share at the end on resilience and thriving is something that I know personally as well as professionally. So you're going to go ahead and get started. I'm going to share my screen. If you have questions, please feel free to ask them. And then if I don't know the answer to them, I will get the answer to them, if that makes sense, and get back with you. If you are watching a recorded version of this and you have questions and you want to ask me, Duncan has my information, and so he will give you my email so you can reach out, and I am more than happy to stay in touch. So I'm going to try to share my screen and see how this works. I think it's going to go well. Okay, and I'm going to start from the front. Okay. To tell you a little bit about NETRF before we get started, I just want to say thank you for inviting me, because I think we're better when we share information and we connect. And COVID taught us a lot, and if anything, it taught us that we can connect very easily. So I'm so thankful to be here today. So a little bit about NETRF. So NETRF is the NET Research Foundation. And our purpose and our mission is to fund research for people living with neuroendocrine cancer. And that does not mean that you have to live in the United States. We actually fund a lot of research globally. And we're working and we are funding research for you, even if we're based in the United States, if that makes sense. The other part of the NETRF organization is that we're really committed to helping people find ways to live well with their disease too. Because as you know, living with a disease, living with NET cancer, that there sometimes can be periods of time where there's not much going on, right? And you still have to live and thrive. And so we're here to really provide, to raise money and to fund research And I'll talk a little bit more about the type of research that we fund. And then we are here to help support you through education. Okay, so this is a map of kind of where we have funded research. So NETRF has invested over $36 million in global research for neuroendocrine cancer. And we have awarded more of the JEPNet grants and a lot more funding than even NIH, the National Cancer Institute, has funded for neuroendocrine. You know, you're living with NET cancer, and you know that funding or that NET cancer is uncommon, right? I like to not call it rare. I like to call it uncommon and misunderstood, but uncommon at that. And so NET Research is really the primary funder of the NET Research Foundation is the primary funder of NET Research. And often, and I'll share this a little bit going forward, is that if without the type of research that we do, we wouldn't get to the point of clinical trials often. So why is basic? So we fund basic and translational research. And I have a disease. I live with a disease that I always say that some things in the United States will say something is like apples to apples, and that means that it's comparable, right? My disease is not like apples to apples here. Mine is like apples and potatoes. It's different. But my disease is one that has had a lot of clinical trials and a lot of treatments, because over the years, I always took for granted that that some diseases have had a lot of research and treatments available, et cetera. Basic and translational research is actually the very beginning research that's needed before you can get to those clinical trials, before you can get to those treatments. And so what basic research does for us is it teaches us about the cancer, about the biology of it, why is it the way that it is. So a lot of the NET Foundation research, we're looking at the basics of NET cancer to understand it. And then we're also looking at what other research out there is translatable to NET cancer. And our NETRF basic research has really led to some really good discoveries in NET care. And one of the things that I feel like is the most interesting thing about NET cancer and research with NET cancer is that NET cancer acts like so different than other cancers. And so it's hard to create a model to conduct research on for NET cancer, because NET cancer is so unique. Mm-hmm. And so NETRF has been investing a lot of time and energy in finding and developing new NET cell models, because those models are absolutely necessary for us to understand the disease. And so through that, we've created organoids, 3D model of organs, and that have been generated for NETs. But that's really important, because if we don't have a way that we can copy what this cancer looks like to do treatment, then or not to do treatment, but to do research, then we can't do the research. So we do a lot of the very basic stuff, but it's really important.
And Jessica, just a quick question. Sorry, if we could maybe just go back a slide. When you refer to the cell model, is that literally a kind of either an actual model or virtual or 3D model of the NET cancer cells within the different types of neuroendocrine tumors that exist?
So what you're trying to do is you're trying to duplicate that. You're trying to duplicate what that model looks like, and making an example where NET cancer can thrive.
Yes. Okay.
If that makes sense. I know we don't want NET cancer to thrive, but in order to understand NET cancer, we need to have models that will enable NET cancer to be there. Mm. Some research is conducted where they might take cells from a person, but in this example, these are where we create the models.
Super. Thanks for the clarification.
Yeah, it's a very hard thing to do, though. I've been able to speak with researchers. It's a really hard, and it's probably one of the most complicated parts of this research is creating and making sure that they are being able to sustain these models, so that way when there's research ready to be done, that they have models ready to go. And so NETRF is very involved in making sure that we're involved in discussions with researchers and ways to help develop, because this is one of the biggest barriers to research at the basic level for NET cancer. And it's because NET cancer is just so different. So we focus, if you look at this chart right here, you'll kind of see, some different diseases already have treatments, already have things available, but it takes a long time to actually get there. And so if you see where the red circle is, the drug development is really, you can take up to 10 years to develop a medication for a treatment. And so where we contribute to that is really the very beginning, the discovery parts of that, through the basic and the translational research. And often, with basic and translational research, you learn things. You learn sometimes that something doesn't work, or you learn something about the cancer that you can say, check, that didn't work. Or now we understand that more. But some of our funded research has led to clinical trials, which has been pretty impressive. We recently, last week actually, announced that we just awarded more than $2 million over, I believe it was 12 researchers that were global, that are going to be starting their research here soon. And so that's really incredible, is that we're continuing to fund research, and there are researchers and programs out there and people that are invested in helping people with NET cancer. And so this research continues, and while we find at the basic and translational levels, often if they are able to learn more, they'll go on and get more funding, and then we've gotten to a place where NET care has more treatment options, and so that's how it kind of evolves. So now I'm going to ask you guys some questions. How many of you know of this patient guide? Okay, so we got 2 hands. Let me see if I can make it where I can see the whole grid. Nope, I didn't do it that way. Let me see that way. Okay, so what I would like, if it's possible, would you guys be willing to give me your email address? If you actually, even if you're, just so I have a copy of your email address, but if you do not have a copy of this guide, I would like to get you a copy of this guide. So I'm moving a little bit more into the patient education, the stuff that I work with. This neuroendocrine cancer guide was created by someone who had lost her husband to NET cancer, but it is probably the most, I would say the most efficient tool in terms of having all the resources and information at your fingertips. And I think it's good to share with your family members, your friends, people that love you, so they can understand it a little bit more. And it's also good to share with your doctors if you have doctors that don't understand NET cancer, and that can be common. I know where I live in North Carolina, but our organization is based out of Boston. So it's a 3-hour flight, but maybe like 12 hours driving. And in North Carolina, the NET care is very different than it is in Boston. If I lived in different parts of the United States, it's much better, but in my area, it's not that great. Is it like that in your area as well?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think if you're living in, certainly in Cape Town and Johannesburg, we've got multidisciplinary teams that are treating patients with NETs who have a lot of experience. I think in Durban there's maybe a team, and there might be 1 or 2 other locations. So those are kind of the 2 or 3 of the big kind of cities in South Africa. But outside of those areas, there is very little knowledge or understanding of NETs, even from a kind of getting a diagnosis perspective. So it's absolutely, it's one of our kind of key focus areas is around, raising awareness at a GP level around NETs. So, I mean, I have got this guide, and I'll also share it with everyone as well. I mean, I think it is really super useful and very interesting. And, as recently as in the last 3 weeks, we've had 2 new members who have joined our group, and it's actually their carers that have joined our group. And they are in the throes of, certainly in the one instance of, it's just a freight train of tests and trying to get to a point of diagnosis, and there's terminology, and it's confusing, and it's overwhelming, and it's traumatic, and it's quite a minefield. And I think having kind of guides and guidelines like this are very helpful. So it's somewhere that you can go to that is a credible source of information that can help you kind of upskill yourself, so at least you can even understand the discussion, because often you're sitting in a discussion with a medical individual and they're talking to you, but it might as well be a different language. You don't even understand what they're saying. Well, that was certainly my experience, and I'm sure others on the call can probably agree with me there. So this is a super helpful resource. Thank you.
Absolutely. It took a second because I had accidentally drawn on the screen, so I apologize. I had to learn how to take that off real quick. So we will make sure that we get a copy of this guide for you, because I think it's helpful on many, many different levels. And I do think the community continues to need to know. If you ever, if Duncan, we might be able at some point to give you a hard copy or 2 that you might be able to pass out, but it's a very small book, but I know in PDF form it's a little bit different. So the next thing I'm going to mention, before I do that, I'll connect that with, living with NET cancer can be very challenging and isolating, and a lot of it, comes down to not having the amount of there's not as many people living with a diagnosis, and it's pretty misunderstood. And so this resource can be very helpful. Now, we also have a podcast called NetWise. I'm not sure if you're familiar with it. What I will do is I will also via email send you all the link to the NetWise podcast. It is kind of a what I call like an NPR type format. It's not just one person talking. We bring in multiple professionals, and then most importantly, too, we bring in multiple NET patients, because it's really important to hear from other people that understand what you're going through. And we have all sorts of different topics. We talk about research. We talk about the biology of NETs and the science of NETs. We also have started to add other topics. For example, our last, most recent episode of NetWise is parenting with NETs. And I think that's a really important topic, because a lot of people are younger. And even if you're not an active parent, you might be a grandparent. And so it's important to know. We also talked about, we have an episode on navigating your new normal and accepting your new normal, which many of you, since you're all living with NET cancer, know that, or if you might love someone with NET cancer, it's kind of you almost have to go through some stages of grief after your diagnosis, right? And process. I always say, often I've worked with people with disease for a long time, and in the beginning it feels like this, like your hand is in front of your face, it's all you can see ever. And it, as a therapist, what my role was is to help slowly over time help people kind of move and shift that disease a little bit. Will that disease always be there? Yes, my disease will always be here. I have my disease is progressive disease. It will always be here. But the goal is that we give ourselves the ability to see everything else and still enjoy life and live. And we can't do that when it's right there. But it's so normal at first diagnosis, or it's so normal I know for me, if I go to the doctor and I have a scan that is bad, then it goes right there for a little bit because I get nervous again, right? And so the point is just be able to slowly move it away a little bit, but not try to get it to go away because it doesn't go away, right?
Mm.
So the NetWise podcast is covering some of those topics, but also just covers like science and about nets as well. So there are episodes that will speak to every single person. And so I will make sure I share the link for all of that as well. And then we have conferences. We have our annual conference, which is the Know Your Nets. It is virtual. And then we have our YouTube channel that you can subscribe to. I will make sure that you guys all get the links to the YouTube channel. And this is a really great way to get net education from net specialists that are from all over the United States and some globally as well, but mostly the United States. But it's a good place to get education and information.
Yeah, thanks, Jessica. I mean, I think just to comment on my side is that we really appreciate having access to these resources because I think they really are, industry leading. And, in Netsas, we're a relatively young organization. So we were started in 2019. We certainly don't have the resources to develop our own nets related informational resources. And so we're actually not trying to do that. Our mission is rather to kind of raise awareness about nets and then also support patients through providing access to information. And rather than us creating the content, it's almost like us partnering or leveraging organizations such as NETRF and leveraging all of these great materials. So this is wonderful. Thanks.
Absolutely. And I leverage other materials from other organizations too. I think that's really important that we have so much to build from, and NETRF has a whole library of resources and different ways if you like to listen to podcasts or if you want to watch a video or if you were in our area, if you wanted to attend a program. So there's lots of different ways that you can tap into our resources. And so we're going to talk a little bit about resilience and thrivership. I'm going to move to the chat box real quick to make sure. Let's see, George, I know that you can only be on here for 30 minutes, but we will make sure that that you get the recording so you can hear this part if you have to go before it. This is my specialty and what I speak the easiest on, and because it's what I'm the most passionate about is helping people live well with their disease. And so we're gonna talk a little bit about resilience, and Duncan, I'm gonna ask you for any emails that were written down. Can you make sure I get them, please?
Yeah,
okay.
Sure.
So when we think of resilience, we think of, if you were to look it up in the dictionary, it would say the ability to bounce back. And for some people that might be the case, but I look at resilience much different. I look at resilience as working through a challenge, because I know for myself and for people with net cancer that often net cancer is not going away. It might be over here in the background, right? And so I like the idea that that you don't really bounce back fully to perfect or what you were before, but maybe you adapt and change and you're working through. I'm going to take one sip. So I would say a decade ago, I started to do a lot of research and information on resilience and how that impacted people. My background and specialty is helping people deal with the emotions and finding emotional wellness within physical disease. Sometimes we don't talk about emotions enough, but emotions they play very much into how we're feeling physically. And it's hard to, on the same end, it's hard to feel good if emotionally we're not feeling well either. So I started doing some research on resilience, and I've invested a lot of time on finding tools and strategies for people, as well as looking at other people's research. And I'm going to share a couple of things, a couple of tools, and then I want to open a little bit of discussion to see what you guys do, because I often feel that we all do little things that are resilient, that we might be inspired if we hear what other people do. So the first tool resource that I'm going to share is on practicing gratitude. It sounds kind of silly, right? Just practicing gratitude, how can that make me more resilient? Well, there's a lot of things about gratitude that actually can help you be more resilient. It does not change your disease, but it changes the way that you can approach your day, the way that you look at things, and that can make a big difference. It also can give you a surge of dopamine when you're noticing things to be grateful for. Some people sleep better, and there's science behind this, that some people sleep better when they think about the things that they were grateful for at the end of the day. I'm going to take one more step, sorry. So with that said, there's a couple ways that you can practice gratitude. I did a little bit of research, and I used to practice it by thinking in the morning, what is it today that I could be grateful for? I would just ask that question to myself on my commute into the office. And that really did help me kind of reframe my day, because instead of just driving to work or commuting to work, I started looking for things that that were good, that were happening, little things like the traffic was easy, or my coffee was really good before I left, or just the song on the radio was good. I just noticed good easier. But and then I would write things down. Some people, for gratitude, they make a concurrent list. I have a planner. I don't know if many of you are planners, but I like to document. I always write down at least one good thing that happened during the day, because I love going back and being able to see that no matter what, there's a lot of good. Another strategy, or another way to think about this right here is a jar of pearls, mostly pearls. But also in this jar are some lemon drops. So I think that the lemon drops represent challenges. So it might represent that I actually have an MRI myself coming up on Saturday. That's a lemon drop. I don't like getting scans, but I have to get one because it's important every year for me to get one. But so that represents a lemon drop. Or maybe I've had a day with fatigue. That would represent a lemon drop. I know for neck cancer, those are very similar lemon drops. Or maybe you've been having a lot of GI issues, or flushing, and it causes some disruption, or that you have a child that homework is becoming a problem at night. I mean, it can be a lot of different things, but we all have lemon drops. We can't control some of those, but we absolutely can control the pearls we put in here. So I think about pearls are little good things that happen all throughout your day, your week, your month, etc. So for example, I am putting a really big pearl in here that my voice is working, because I was saving it for you guys all day. I told no one I could talk to them, and it was working. And that's a big pearl for me today, right now. Another pearl is that we have sunshine right now. It's really pretty. Where I was visiting was really cold. Another pearl might be that that my energy is good today, etc. So, or you have a good conversation, or your favorite show comes on at night. I would like for you guys to tell me, if anyone can speak, what is something that you would consider, because your day you're in your evening already. What is a little pearl that you experienced today?
Who wants to start? It'd be good to get some interaction going here. Sorry, George?
I can start.
Yes, please.
Okay, my pearl today, no nausea.
That's a great pearl, yes.
Yeah, I started my PRRT again last week, and I've had nausea since then and vomiting and all the rest. But yeah, today no nausea meds and no nausea. My pearl.
Yeah, that is a big pearl. That is great. Sometimes the pearls can be big and they can be small, and it's okay. But the idea is that you are in control of the pearls you put in here. We can't control the lemon drop, which is the nausea, right, from the treatments. We can't control that, but we can control, little things that we can do, like maybe that you were able to listen to some relaxing music, or not experience nausea, which adds a pearl. So I just want to give you an aspect of control that while we can't control the lemon drops, we can absolutely control the pearls.
Yeah.
And that's a really big part of living well with with that cancer, is kind of finding where you can control some things, because sometimes we can't control. Another aspect of resilience is connection. So I am going to applaud all for being on here tonight, because connecting with others who are going through aspects of what you're going through leads to resilience. It is important to connect, and it's important to not feel alone. And socialization, so beyond just this group, but thinking about, even if you're introverted, being connected and engaged is really important for emotional wellness for everybody, but even with disease. People that are more connected, this doesn't mean that you have to be very extroverted, it's just that you're connected and you are not feeling isolated or alone. People that generally are better connected report overall better quality of life, regardless of their disease or disability, etc. Another aspect of resilience that is important, and once I get your email, I will sign you up for our e-newsletter, and in it I've been doing a thrivership series that just have little tips and things that you can do to help your resilience and help with thriving with nets. But one of the last ones I focused on was having a net-free zone. And that may feel impossible, because nets probably feels like it touches everything, right? I feel like my disease touches a lot. It touches my parenting, it touches my job, it touches my energy level. It touches a lot. But it's important for us to have aspects of our life that either we can not give our disease much permission to take. So like my disease may impact my parenting a little bit sometimes because of my energy level, but it doesn't impact my love for my son or my love for music. And so I have found, and I'm working with clients, I've found that, helping them identify things that, I'm going to take one more step. Helping them to identify the things that will, that is a little bit, that the disease doesn't touch is important. So that way you feel that you have things. So if you love sewing, then you sew. If you love music, you continue to be involved in music. You find areas of your life that can be yours regardless. And if your disease touches it, so I said my disease touches my energy level. And I know for people with net cancer, sometimes their disease can affect their energy level too with fatigue. But finding a modification or allowing it to look a little bit different will really help you too. And these are hard things to do. And if you're struggling with them, I highly recommend connecting with other people that are living with your disease, asking them what they do, or even working with a counselor. That's something that can be very helpful. just to have a little bit of different perspective and have someone that understands chronic disease, at least, that that can help you navigate to find those things that are important. Because the goal is that we don't want to live with our disease in front of our faces the whole time. We want it to at least be over here. And that is possible. Yeah. Now, I wanted to stop here for questions.
Yeah, maybe if I could just jump in with an observation, Jessica. I mean, I think, I really like all these kind of small tools and tips and things that you're sharing, because I think it is, the gratitude is I've found that a very, very helpful tool in living with NETs. And it also helps you kind of reframe and focus, where you can choose what you want to focus on. And if you do get into the habit of having a gratitude journal, or however you want to do it, kind of either in the mornings or in the evenings, I find it quite helpful to write it down, because it's actually quite interesting to go back and look at it and see what you've written. And, particularly when things are quite tough and you go back and you read some of the things that you've been grateful on this journey, it is certainly, I found it very actually empowering, and it's helped me kind of almost get out of a funk, as it were. And then the other thing, and this is probably more for the benefit of the recording than for everyone who's on the call right now, but one of the founding members of Netsas, Linda Greef, she is a social oncologist who's got kind of 20 plus years of supporting individuals with kind of various different kind of cancers, and she's got very deep experience and a lot of wisdom. So if anyone is listening to this recording in the future and they're struggling and they're not sure who to speak to, I would certainly encourage them to reach out to Linda. She does provide kind of counseling services. The first one is free, and then you can chat to her about making an arrangement. But certainly she's helped a lot of patients, particularly in the early days. I think that's where I think as you get further into this journey, it becomes a little bit less daunting, although it always is a bit of a roller coaster. So I mean, there's always that caveat. But I just wanted to put that comment in just for people that'll be listening to this recording going forward.
I think that's a very helpful feedback, and to know who is in your community that can help, and to know that there's a resource, even a free resource where you could talk to someone and just kind of assess, your needs, which is incredibly helpful. It's another area of resilience is knowing your resources. Even if you don't know, you need them all right now, it's good to know if I need emotional support, or if I'm experiencing emotions like or symptoms of depression or anxiety, because those can be very comorbid with a chronic disease or a new disease or a progressive disease. And then sometimes those feelings are very normal feelings to have too. It's normal. I've been living with my own disease for close to, I feel like 19 years, and I'm still going to have anxiety when I wait for my MRI results. That's a normal process. But being able to utilize the resources if your anxiety or feelings of sadness or anything is exacerbated, and sometimes it's good just to have someone to talk to as well. But knowing all of your resources in your area is incredibly important, because, and it's a very resilient thing. And then another resilient thing is asking for help. That can be a very hard thing, and it's what brave looks like. But I encourage you, if you're struggling as a care partner or as someone living with NETs, if you are feeling isolated or alone or need some resources, to ask out and ask and reach out. And it seems like this is a really great organization to start. So I'm going to move on to the next slide. So how you can get involved. This is a little bit more about how you can get involved with NETRF, but if you are interested in helping to fund research, this is kind of the heart and the mission of our organization. And these are just some ways that you can get involved. You are also a part of an organization right now, and there are ways that you can get involved there, I know too. And so I encourage you more than anything to get involved and to be, give yourself the opportunity to help in the areas or be a part of, of helping to progress net research or support for one another. So I'm going to leave it open for questions.
Thanks, Jessica. So just opening the floor, has anyone got any questions for Jessica on NETRF or any of the resilience tools that we've discussed?
I'm sorry, I don't have a question, but I have to go. We're having load shedding in the next 10 minutes. So I still have some things to do before the lights go out. Thank you so much, Jessica. It was very helpful. You can share my email as well, Duncan. Thanks, everyone. Good evening.
Thanks, Rahima. Wishing you many more nausea-free days.
Yes.
Thank you. Thanks. Bye.
So while we're waiting to see if there's any questions, I'll share a resource real quick and just one last resilience tool. So I hope you can see this. So this is a picture of a spiral down. And often people can identify with a spiral down, what it feels like. I know it's very light. I didn't do it with a marker, just a pen here at my desk. And often say that we're having a day where we have a lot of nausea. Well, that leads to probably not wanting to move that much, right? And that might lead to maybe feelings of guilt or frustration or something we can easily identify with spiraling down. It is important to know that there is a science of spiraling up as well. And it's so funny because it's like the same exact way. So say that if you're having nausea and you decide to give yourself some grace, but maybe watch a show with your child, and that makes, that feels good because you're spending time with them. Or on, I'm trying to think of another example. If you are, say that you have to really carefully watch what you cook, and say that you learn a new recipe that helps to manage some of the symptoms of flushing. It's like you that feels good, and because you did that, you're going to probably have, if you ate well and you weren't feeling flushing, then you're going to probably have a little bit more energy. You might be more up for that walk. Now, if you take that walk, you're going to create endorphins, and those endorphins are going to help you feel good. And chances are, too, that's going to help you sleep better. So there are little things that we can do, regardless of our disease, that can help you spiral up. So if you're ever in a place where you feel like you've spiraled down, I want you to remember that there are little things that you can do to help spiral you up. Maybe not to the tippity top if it's a bad day, but just a little bit up.
Brilliant. But it's a very simple and very powerful analogy. And I think it talks to kind of mindset and framing and reframing whatever your personal kind of circumstances are. I mean, I've certainly spent, and I think we kind of discussed this in a previous meeting where we're having kind of member shares on their journey, and I've spent a lot of time and effort kind of reframing what it means to heal. And I found that a very, very helpful exercise. So not necessarily looking for cure or to be kind of free of nets, but healing can take on many different forms and can be many different things. So I like that reframing of the downward spiral and having tools and tricks that you can use to kind of flip it on its head.
Absolutely. And it comes from a book that talks about neuroscience. And it's well, I didn't know it was a book for a while. And then I saw a book and I was like, oh, that's exactly what I've been telling people about with the spiral. But it's a book on depression, just one small step at a time. But there's neuroscience behind it. And there's things that happen when we do little things that help us move up.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm just looking in the chat. Are there any questions? Any questions for Jessica? Seems like we're all good. Well, what I'll do is, Jessica, I've got all of those email addresses, so I will share them with you after this call. But I guess on behalf of everyone at Netsas, thanks once again for making the time, and hopefully you have a little bit of a voice for the second half of your day. I don't know what it entails, but we really appreciate you coming online and kind of introducing NETRF to us, and all of these great resources. It's we're very appreciative. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. We are at NETRF, we are here for you. And we are committed to helping, fund research, and we are committed to help resources. So know that even though I'm in the United States, you can reach out to me. If I can help in any way, I will. And continue on with your great group and connecting, because it's important.
Yeah, no, thank you. And maybe one final question from my side, just on the research and the funding, and I think the clinical trials is also something that people are always very interested in. I know we touched on it briefly, and there is quite a long life cycle, in terms of getting new treatments and new medicines to market. Is the best way of keeping abreast of new trials and things just via the website, or how do you suggest we kind of keep our finger on the pulse in terms of what's happening?
I absolutely feel like keeping up with our EF day is really good. Keeping up with our website is great, because we're going to stay abreast of all that's going on. And so if you want to learn more about net research and what's going on in the world of net research, please stay in touch. There's also a website, and I took off the page, but I'll share it with you, clinicaltrials.gov, but because it was I would believe something for the United States, I took it off because I didn't want to give something that didn't feel relevant to you, but that might be a way of staying abreast. And what I can do, Duncan, is look in, there's a new website called Ancora that will be coming out. And I'm trying to talk fast for the people that will lose their power. So Ancora will eventually be up and running, but that when you go to clinicaltrials.gov and you put in neuroendocrine or cancer, so many different trials come up, and some that are not relevant to net cancer. And so Ancora is going to specifically be able to weed out all the irrelevant clinical trials, and it will be focused only on the clinical trials that are relevant.
Super, thank you. I mean, that's very handy. I mean, it is something that I know a lot of our patients are certainly interested in keeping abreast on. So that'll be great.
Absolutely. And as I will, Duncan, I will get you the clinical trials information as well. But if you stay engaged with NETRF, you're going to learn a lot about what's going on in the world of net research.
Yeah, super. No, that's fantastic. Well, once again, thank you very much, Jessica. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
And enjoy the rest of your day. And we look forward to staying in touch.
Yes, sleep well, everyone, and have a good evening. It was my pleasure. I'll come back anytime.
Super. Thanks very much, Jessica. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Taryn. Thanks, Ross.
Cheers. Thanks.
Okay. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Cheers, Taryn.
All right. Thank you, Duncan. Bye.
Thanks, Jessica.